as Congresswoman Eshoo preluded for us, our next speaker is from the White House. It's Danny Weitzner, who's Deputy Chief Technology Officer for Internet Policy. Danny has been in our world and involved in all the key issues for many years, time at EFF, CDT, World Wide Web, in policy positions, important roles. He helped create the agenda for the Obama-Biden presidential transition, played a very big role on issues from privacy to cybersecurity, copyright protection, global free flow of information, and I think he's probably pretty busy these days, but we're really glad he took time out to be with us. Danny, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much, Ed. Really appreciate you having me here. Appreciate you getting everyone together. I think that I don't have to remind people here of your leadership in this field for so many years. You've really brought a critical voice of openness to this debate. I want to talk about the word that we hear so often in Washington, the word that Congresswoman Eshoo referred to, balance. We all know we need balanced policy approaches. Very few people argue against balance. It's kind of a hard argument to make. But I want to talk about how we've approached balance in internet policy making and how we have looked from the very beginning of this administration to find a balance on these critical issues that leans toward innovation. Because as you heard from the Congresswoman, as you all know very well in your work, our future critically depends on having an open, free, innovative internet and information technology industry. We need those conditions for innovation in the domestic marketplace, and especially, as Ed pointed out, as the Congresswoman pointed out, we need those conditions of openness and innovation all around the world in order to have continued success in the internet environment. So for us, the challenge has always been how to support principles of open innovation while at the same time meeting the needs, the responsibilities that government has to protect consumers, to protect intellectual property, and to safeguard our national security. I'm going to talk just for a little bit about how we've tried to apply this balance that leans toward innovation in the area of consumer privacy, in the area of online copyright, cybersecurity, as well as the global internet governance and trade policy issues that we're all working on together. We began very early in this administration recognizing that we really needed to take a fresh look at consumer privacy protection. This is an administration that's been committed to values of privacy from the beginning. We've also, though, recognized from the beginning that many of our critical initiatives, whether it's health information technology or environmental progress through smart grid or education reform, all depend on innovative and in some cases quite intensive use of personal information. So it was clear we needed to take a broad look at privacy protection. After about 2.5 years of very intensive engagement with many of you around this table, many stakeholders, both in the United States and around the world, we issued in February the Consumer Privacy Bill of Rights. And I want to try to illustrate for you, I'm not going to talk in detail about it, just about all of you, as I look around, I think have heard me talk about it at least once, so I'm not going to repeat myself. But I want to just remind you and illustrate how our approach to privacy, we believe, reflects this kind of balance that leads towards innovation, that leans towards innovation. What we did with the Consumer Privacy Bill of Rights was to articulate a broad set of privacy principles based in many ways on globally recognized standards, but updated for the realities, the challenges, and the opportunities of the internet environment, of the interactive information environment, a set of principles that we think consumers should be able to rely on, a set of principles that we believe companies ought to embrace, and many of the leading companies already are embracing these important principles. We'd like to see Congress enact these principles in a statute, but what we want to make sure of is that we are also able to take those principles and implement them flexibly, that as new business models develop, as new technologies develop, we're able to take these broad principles and implement them in specific contexts, in specific industry sectors. And as Ed suggested, or someone asked a question about the multi-stakeholder approach, that was you, Bernie, we've said we want to take these broad principles and have a mechanism by which government can act more as a convener than a regulator, more as to bring parties together to reach agreements rather than to dictate fixed rules. And we think that this is a way that we can make sure that consumers have the privacy protection we believe they deserve. We think this is a way that new companies that come along are able to find guidance about what it means to respect privacy in the new technologies and the new business practices that they develop. And we also want to make sure, as part of leaning towards innovation in privacy, that businesses can have a sense of certainty. So we've called on Congress to give the FTC the authority to give businesses a safe harbor against enforcement if the FTC finds that those businesses are implementing practices that are consistent with the Consumer Privacy Bill of Rights. We think that the FTC has done an extraordinary job in privacy enforcement over the years with actually very scant specific privacy authority when you look at their statute, but really we think they are a world-leading privacy enforcer. And in fact, although it's fashionable in some circles to characterize Europe as caring more about privacy and us as caring about less, I think we have the most robust privacy enforcement of any country in the world. And in fact, our privacy enforcement, if you look at it, reaches across our borders in a very constructive way. My colleague, Chairman Leibowitz, recently pointed out that between two major privacy settlements that his agency has recently engaged in, the Google settlement and the Facebook settlement, the FTC is protecting over 1 billion internet users. Now, last I looked, we don't have 1 billion internet users in the United States, so we must be doing a pretty good job of protecting privacy, not just in our borders, but being responsible all around the world. This is what we mean by leaning towards innovation when it comes to privacy. We want to take values of privacy seriously, but we believe at the same time we can do it in a way that enables businesses to grow, to maintain the flexibility that they need to compete. We're seeing the fruits, I think, of this approach over the last few years from the interactions that we've had with our colleagues in the European Union. Just last month, we had a senior delegation from the European Commission and the European Parliament visit here in Washington to engage in a comprehensive dialogue on the future of consumer privacy protection. As all of you know, we're at a critical point where we have the European Union reconsidering their approach to privacy. We have our privacy books open, as it were. It's a critical time to find ways to come together to achieve what we've called a sense of global interoperability in privacy rules. We do not expect, I hate to break it to all of you, that we'll reach any kind of grand treaty that establishes a single consistent set of precise privacy rules all around the world that your companies can all just comply with without thinking about it. I'm not sure you'd want that anyway. But what we do think is that we have a commitment across borders to a common set of principles. And when our European colleagues were here, Vice President Reding and Secretary Bryson issued a communique that recognized that though we have different regulatory models to approach privacy, that that our two systems are based on a set of common principles, and that's the basis for interoperability. So we're very encouraged that this approach can help strike a smart, innovation-leaning balance between privacy on the one hand and innovation on the other. We have a similar approach, I'd say, to copyright protection. We are second to no country in the seriousness with which we protect intellectual property protection. We've made major investments in enhanced enforcement cooperation, in coordinating our intellectual property enforcement across a number of different agencies. We've also recognized the critical role that voluntary measures play in the global the need to protect intellectual property globally. We recognize that intellectual property protection across borders can be challenging. I can only I only have to, use the words SOPA and PIPA, and everyone's blood pressure raises just a little bit. But I think we learned a lot from that debate, and I think we learned what it means to have an innovation-leaning balance on copyright protection. We were very happy to see the formation of the Center for Copyright Information, which we think will really advance best practices on copyright protection in the consumer online environment, both in the U.S., and we hope those practices can be of use around the world as well. But when we saw Congress considering copyright protection statutes that address the very real problem of foreign rogue websites, we expressed concern to make sure that those statutes not compromise our security, and just as importantly, not compromise the innovative environment, the innovation promoting policy framework that we have online that makes sure that internet platforms behave responsibly on the one hand, but are not subject to undue or uncertain obligations that would cause reduction in investment in new internet business models, would cause uncertainty about how those internet platforms operate as open platforms for innovation. So I think we have a model here. It's a work in progress in the area of copyright protection, but I think that we know that we can strike a smart, innovation-leaning balance on copyright protection in the online environment. This is Cybersecurity Week. A lot of people are very focused on this issue. We're very happy to see the House engaging the issue seriously. This is another issue where I think it's critical to find a smart and innovation-leaning balance. We've said very clearly that cybersecurity is a major priority. We've presented a comprehensive cybersecurity package to the Senate and have been working very closely with the debate there. But we've also said that cybersecurity legislation can't tip the balance in the wrong way. We don't want to see a militarization of cyberspace. We don't want to see an environment, ironically enough, given some of the polls of the SOPA debate, we don't want to see an environment in which we create a sense of lawlessness in the online environment through excessive liability limitations just in the name of information sharing. We think it's critical to work towards information sharing environments. We have a number of pilot programs, as you all know, that are exploring this. We think it's important that industry have clear liability rules in that information sharing. We don't want to discourage information sharing in any way unnecessarily. But we also don't want to create liability limitations that waive antitrust law, that waive the 47 states' data breach laws, or that create major uncertainty about the important balances that we've struck when it comes to wiretapping law. So we don't think we need to sacrifice privacy and civil liberties in order to protect cybersecurity, and we'll continue to work with Congress on finding the right balance. Part of that balance, though, as you know, is a very clear sense that we think that we as a government need authority to make sure that our critical infrastructures are engaging in adequate security practices, that they meet baseline requirements, they meet best practices. We've said very clearly we don't want to get into the design of technology. We're not going to start mandating hardware or software standards in any way. We've never done that, and we would never consider doing that. But we do think that critical infrastructures are not adequately protected, and we need authority to make sure that they are. So, in a lot of ways, I think we look around at the U.S. internet environment, at the marketplace, at the commercial marketplace, at the culture that we've created around the internet, and while we're all, some of us around here are paid to kind of focus on the problems, I think overall we can really feel quite good about the model that we've created in the U.S., about the model that many of our colleagues in other OECD countries have created, where we really have just tremendous innovation continuing in the internet environment. Our commitment, obviously, is to continue that, but as Ed alluded to, we are watching very carefully suggestions from some of the UN organizations, some other countries that seem to feel, we believe mistakenly, that there's a need to somehow get the internet under control, that somehow these internet institutions that have really created this environment, the Internet Engineering Task Force, the World Wide Web Consortium, ICANN, other organizations that really reflect the best of multi-stakeholder participation in the internet environment, we think are critically important for the future. We think they are sustainable organizations. We think they're scalable organizations. You only have to look at where they were 15 or 20 years ago and where they are now and see that these institutions have proven that they're up to the task of continuing to grow the internet environment. So we are going to make sure that the organizations in the United Nations, such as the International Telecommunications Union and other parts of the United Nations, don't step too far into this environment. We think they all have very important roles to play. We rely on them. But we do not think that there's any particular need, really, for organizations that have traditionally focused on telecommunications at the international level to somehow step in and try to fix the internet. We don't think it's broken. We think it's working well. We are working very hard through organizations such as the Internet Governance Forum, through the many cybersecurity cooperative efforts that we have, the OSCE and a number of others. We're working very hard through the Open Government Partnership to spread the understanding of how to engage in real multi-stakeholder participation in developing new internet models. And I think we will, in the next year, have a serious set of discussions. It's a treaty conference that the ITU is hosting in December in Dubai. And we want to make sure that, as someone said, we don't kill the goose that laid the golden egg. I think we have some positive opportunities on the global scene as well, particularly through the Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Agreement. The President has made this a major priority in establishing an open trade environment with a number of our Pacific Rim allies. And I think what is particularly encouraging for the interest of people around this table is in the TPP, we have both a discussion of what trade commitments ought to be to encourage intellectual property protection, and we also have a discussion of what trade commitments ought to be to encourage the development of cloud computing, to encourage the spread of internet platforms throughout that marketplace. The discussions going on at the TPP are putting particular emphasis on making sure that we avoid specific data localization requirements, which would clearly be a major problem for many of the internet platforms and the cloud services that are being offered today. And we want to make sure that we are minimizing national regulatory barriers, often put up in the name of protecting privacy or cybersecurity, which we think are real risk of becoming non-tariff trade barriers. We think that the model of enforceable codes of conduct based on global standards that we've pioneered with privacy and security and other policy areas can be a very positive alternative to the national barriers that sometimes these regulatory regimes can impose. We certainly believe that governments, ours included, have a need, have an imperative, have a responsibility to make sure that they're protecting privacy, that they're protecting their citizens' security in the use of these services. But we want to make sure that the regulatory barriers are structured in a way that keep these borders open, that keep these marketplaces open. So I think that the challenges you can see in all these different areas is to find this balance, to find the proper relationship between very clear government responsibilities to protect our citizens, to protect our businesses, to protect property in a way that also remains open to innovation, that leans towards innovative solutions. In order to do this, in order to succeed at this, we really need all of you to help. We need all of you to help participate in the multi-stakeholder processes that advance policy interest, whether it's in the area of privacy or copyright or security. We need to build a sense that these approaches, which are working, we think, very well, can continue to work and can continue to grow. We also need you to spread this message with your partners around the world. I think the United States is in a very unique position as to the internet environment. We obviously have a very strong position in this marketplace, but as all of you know, we do this based on the fact that we have partners all around the world who are using these services, who are benefiting from these services, particularly in the context of the ITU debate, of the UN debate. I think we sometimes narrow our focus into a kind of a one country, one vote view of the world. We have a sense that perhaps some of the countries that are not as developed when it comes to internet usage have a monolithic view of these issues. My experience traveling around the world, the experience of many of my colleagues, is that in almost any country that you can think of, there are internet innovators hard at work. They may not be as well represented in their governments, but many of you are selling to them, or many of you are partnering with them, and what we need to do is to build, to continue to build the coalition that we have, all the different constituencies that are dependent on the continued growth of the internet, both in the commercial world and in civil society. It's the way the internet has always worked, and our challenge is to continue that. So we need your help with it, and really thank you for all your support thus far. And I'm happy to take a couple of questions, Ed.
Okay, thank you,
Thanks.
Danny. Although I have an obligation, apparently you have a flight to catch, so I want to
do.
make sure you watch your clock. We'll
all right.
keep you here forever. Let me, maybe this isn't fair, because you're so obviously into the substance and depth, and you know our industry, but you are in the White House, so let me ask partially a political question. SOPA demonstrated, I think, a strong libertarian streak in the Republican Party that came out in some critical ways to help the industry. To what extent do you think that the White House and the administration can lay out a policy framework of what you've accomplished and what you're going to do that is a strong message to tech industry that you're the best game in town?
Well, we've done well in the internet environment by remaining as nonpartisan as possible, I would say. I think you look at the SOPA debate, and there wasn't one party on one side or the other of that debate. It broke down on a variety of different lines, and people who are smarter politically than I will maybe be able to explain that. But what you had there, I think, was a genuine difference of opinion in how to approach these issues and how to strike this balance. I'm very proud of the fact that this administration stood up for a pro-innovation balance on this very important issue. We did it not without a certain amount of political pressure coming from both sides. We looked at those arguments on both sides. We talked to everyone who had views on both sides, and we came out with a pro-innovation approach. So I think if there's anything that shows that we're able to advance a pro-innovation agenda, it is that debate. And beyond that, I would say we've really made a commitment as a government, as an executive branch, to make sure that we are taking the most advantage of the innovative approaches that this industry can bring to a whole range of our policy priorities. Anyone who would want to look at us as kind of old school, simplistic regulatory Democrats, I think, would just be proven wrong by the large number of innovative, of open government initiatives that we have addressing a whole range of issues, again, whether it's healthcare or education reform, support for veterans, support for job creation, new spectrum. I think we have a absolutely comprehensive and far-reaching agenda on innovation, and we're going to continue to pursue it. Bernie.
First of all, thank you for coming and joining us all here today. This is an important dialogue. We would certainly want to thank you and commend you for the balanced position and thoughtful position that the President took, that you took on PIPA and SOPA, because there's so many issues at stake in all of this, and every one of them is important, and swinging too far one way or another and endangering all of that ends up with a train wreck. And so while that legislative process was a train wreck, better that at the moment than bad legislation. But this process that you've begun, this multi-stakeholder set of issues on privacy, data, and all of that, can't emphasize too much the importance of the issue that you've touched on for a moment, and that is the trade barrier of the 21st century. And it is good that you've seen some encouragement in a statement saying, saluting principles from the European Commission, but the process goes on looking like one that is not oriented that way. And so this multi-stakeholder process here and how it then interacts in dialogue on a more global view of a principle-based policy with Europe is absolutely essential, or we're going to end up with a balkanized, barriered global internet economy, electronic economy that's not going to realize the growth that we in this country certainly need, but really that the whole world needs if the information economy is really going to be the 21st century economy that's going to just balloon and be the source of jobs and new invention going forward. So what you're trying to do is critical. Its success is even more critical.
I couldn't agree more. I want to thank you for all the inspiration that your company has provided on these kinds of approaches, particularly on privacy issues. I'd say that the critical, I think, key to success is really going to be the ability to continue to build trust in this approach, to show that it actually can work. At the end of the day, sometimes it's a long day, but at the end of the day, governments, I believe, are driven by an imperative to satisfy their citizens and grow their economies. That's the challenge that we face in the privacy arena. It's very clear that other countries and other parts of the world have a different view of how to approach those two imperatives than we do. But I do really believe that everyone is approaching this with a relatively open mind. I will say that we have had very warm reception from our European colleagues. They want to understand how we view this issue. They want to understand how we approach it. I often quote my colleague who's the EU data protection supervisor, Peter Hustings, who does this kind of thumbnail history of the U.S.-Europe privacy relationship, and I won't go through it all, but his punchline is, in the last 10 years, Europe has been a lot stronger on principle, and the U.S. has been a lot stronger on practice, by which he means enforcement. And he says we have things to learn from each other. And I think that's a very positive way to look at the issue. We do have different legal systems. We rely on law in different ways. It doesn't mean we care any less about the principles, but it does mean we express them differently, and sometimes that difference of expression can confuse the discussion and appear to be the whole debate. I think we've learned that it isn't, that there is a basis for working together. And again, I come back to the hope that all of you, all of your companies, all of your organizations will really engage in the nuts and bolts, in the nitty-gritty of this process, because that, in the end, is how we'll make progress towards the goal that you're looking for. Thank you all. Appreciate it.